In software engineering, we are looking at chapter number 8, Understanding Requirements. Establishing the groundwork. So, in order to get the information, we have to establish the groundwork, because the software you are going to make, there are many stakeholders. That is the people or the organization who are directly or indirectly benefited, or they are losing something from the software. So stakeholder is a combination of people. It can be customer, it can be business development manager, it can be marketing people, it will be the end user, it can be finance promoter. So in a software, there can be many stakeholders. So we combine them and call them as stakeholders. So in order to get the software requirements and to understand the software requirement, we have to first establish the groundwork. That is, we have to plan. And what are the steps? Because if we don't do this, we won't be able to understand the requirements. So Somerville, he already wrote a book on software engineering. So Somerville and Sawyer, they define the stakeholder is anyone who benefits in a direct or indirect way from the system which is being developed. So a system or a software or an application or a website, so whatever we are making, if someone is directly benefited, lost or lose something, or in any way they are affected in a direct way or an indirected way, so these all people, organization, these are the stakeholder. Stake means they have a part in the pie. They are holding some part. So these people can be, as I just suggested, it can be business operation managers. They can be product managers. They will manage the product, the system, the software, because they might be coming from some organization, big organization. There are people who are marketing people. Normally, they are going to sell the software or a system. There are people who are inside that company or outside, internal, external. They are end user who are going to actually use it. There will be some consultants. They are the stakeholders. The product engineers, product manager, product engineers, software engineers, of course. And those engineers we are going to support and maintain the engineers. So all these are stakeholders. Now each of them, all of them, whichever I name, they all have different perspective. They have different view from the system. They want something from the system or a software. Different benefits. So when the things will start at inception, what will you do? How will you create a groundwork to understand the software requirement? So you will create a list of people, and these will be the list of people who can give you inputs, who can give you requirements. So this is the list you are going to form, and then you can do the elicitation. So they will actually, all these people who are in the list will give you or will contribute you in understanding the requirement. But this list will grow, because just assume that you are talking to the first person. This is your company. Somebody came to you that we want to make a software. This is the first contact person. So you started talking. And when you were talking, you also asked, whom else do you think I should talk? So he will talk to this, talk to them. And this is how the list will grow. So this is the initial groundwork. Recognizing multiple viewpoints. Now every individual, every group have different views. They have different thoughts, inclination. And because various requirements can come from various views. I'll give an example. Say marketing people, marketing group. If you are making a software, you are making a software and the company who is going to give you the project. say the marketing people from there or your company marketing people. So they are interested in the functions and feature because they are looking for the market. What can excite the market? What they can sell to the market. So their point of view is all about selling and marketing. So they can tell you the function and feature with that corresponding view. Then business manager, because they are business manager, they will want certain feature set that can be built in the prescribed budget, and they are also looking at the market. So there are market they want to capture. So their functions will be like that. End users, they only want one thing. The software should be easy to use, easy to learn, easy to handle. So it has to be usable and useful. Software engineers, they are mostly interested in functions. They don't want the technicality to be given to the or to be shown or discussed with the stakeholders. But they want this product to be marketable because the functions and features should be such that it is marketable. So they don't want it, they want it to be as non-technical for the stakeholders as possible. The support engineers, because they are going to support, so they would want the software to be made in such a way so that they can maintain it once it is delivered, once increment is delivered. Working toward collaboration. Collaboration means working together. If, for example, say 5 stakeholders are there in the project, so you can get 5 or more than 5 opinions, thoughts, ideas, requirements, views. So we need to come together and do the understanding requirement. So how this collaboration among all these stakeholders and actual practitioners, that is who are going to implement the system or software, how this is accomplished? Because there has to be communication and collaboration. So if you are a requirements engineer, assume you are a requirement engineer, then what you have to do? What actions you have to perform? First thing, you have to find out what are the areas of commonality. That is, for example, these are 5 people, 5 stakeholders you can say. It can be a group also. So on what topic, on what requirements they are agreeing. They say, okay, for example, someone is saying, I want menu, someone is saying tab. Finally, they agreed on, okay, we want tabs so that we can just click on the tab rather than going through the menu. This is the areas of commonality. Areas of conflict means one is asking north, one is asking south. So it is a conflict. So here the same requirement is conflicting. Someone wants tire to go clockwise. Someone wants tire to go anti-clockwise. So stakeholders, they would collaborate with the people who are actually going to make the requirement. But when the requirements you get, it is the responsibility of the project champion. We call them as a strong project champion. He can be a business manager. He can be a senior technologist. Now he can decide, or he will decide, what requirements to keep and what requirements to cut down. So strong project champion is all about experience and the view of actual software. So in order to establish the groundwork and to know the requirements, we have to start asking questions. So what are the first question being asked? How do we start? We just don't start asking the questions about the functions and features. For example, if you are going to a market, you want to go to a certain building, you will ask and the other person will give you direction. So we will not directly ask the context questions. We will ask the context-free questions. That is, it will be dependent on stakeholders, about the bigger scenario, that is the goals and benefits. What are the project goals and benefits? So these are the first set of questions that we are going to ask. Then we will go to the detail. So I'll give you 3 sets of questions. In the context-free questions, you will understand what I'm trying to suggest here. For example, who is behind the request for this work? We are not actually asking about the work, but who is behind the request of this work? Who is going to use this solution? That is the target audience, target users. What will be the economic benefit of the successful solution? Means, what will you get? What loss can be there? Is there another source for the solution that you need? That is, there is another company or the organization which is making it or which will make it. So here, why are you asking these context-free questions? Because you need to identify the stakeholders and what are the measurable benefits. Once you complete this software, if you are completing it in time and cost and budget and time, then what is the measurable benefits? And you are also knowing the alternatives, because you may be involved or you want some custom software development. So all these questions are targeting that. So that is why we are calling it as context-free questions. So this is how you start. Then the next set of questions. Here we are trying to understand the problem. Here we will start this problem knowing attributes and the customer perception, what the customer thinks. So understand his problem and his view, his thoughts, his perceptions about it. That is, how would you characterize good output that would be generated by a successful solution? If you make a solution, what will you say is a good output? What will you say is not so good output? What problems will this solution address? That is, this solution is going to solve what problems? You can also ask, can you show me or can you describe me in detail the business environment in which this solution will be used? Because you have to know that what topics you should understand so that the software can be made for that business environment. What are the constraints? That is, will special performance issues or constraint, that is the limitation sometimes, affect the way the solution is approached? Means you have to ask about what are your free flow, what are your limitations. Now the third type of questions, we call them as meta questions. Question about a question are meta questions. So these meta questions, they focus on the effectiveness of the communication activity itself. Because now you are communicating, you are talking. Now whether this communication is vital, is relevant or not, that you can ask using this question. Right? So data about the data is metadata. So question about the question are meta questions. So in order to establish the groundwork for understanding the requirement, we need to ask, are you the right person to answer these questions? Are your answers official? That is, are you the correct person to talk? Can I note down your question as final verdict? That is the official. Are you talking officially? So he will say yes or no. Are my questions relevant to the problem that you have? Am I asking the exact, because he is coming from that environment. So he'll tell you, oh, this is relevant, this is irrelevant. Am I asking too many questions? That is, the questions are more than what you can answer. Can anyone else provide additional information? If you need more understanding of the problem, you need to understand more from different people. Should I be asking you anything else? So this question answer session, this is for the first encounter. When you first meet with the stakeholders, and then the requirement you will elicit, means the first part of all these questions will be asked in the first meeting, and then you will increase it, because now from here you are combining or adding the elements of problem solving, negotiation, and finally making the specification. So what I'm trying to suggest here is, the basic questions is important. Then you have to understand the problem to know how to solve it, that is the problem solving. Then you will talk later on for negotiation and specification. NFR or non-functional requirements. The requirements can be categorized broadly into two categories. One is functional requirement, one is non-functional requirement. So there are requirements because the name is saying functional. So what are the functions and features? These are the functional requirement. What the system should do. What are the product features? If you want to write it has this, it has that, then this is the functional requirement. There are certain requirements which are non-functional. That is, what the system should do is functional requirement, but how the system should do it is the non-functional requirement. You will only be told functional requirement, but the non-functional requirement are like the performance, like the security, like the usability. These are all non-functional requirements. So user expectations are non-functional. User requirements are functional requirements. So functional requirements are product features. Non-functional requirements are product properties. Okay. So this is how we differentiate between the functional and non-functional requirement. For example, we need the say add button, delete button. This is functional, but we want this to be done in this time. That is non-functional. So the non-functional requirement or NFR, it can be quality attribute like the usability, security, performance, maintainability. So it can be a performance attribute, that is how much time it should do this thing. That is, for example, file transfer, the industry standard for 1 GB is 5 minutes in say Ethernet environment. But if you are able to do it in say 10 minutes or 30 minutes, it's not acceptable. Every software needs some security issues. Okay, some keys have to be used, some authentication, authorization has to be established. This is the security attribute. Or the NFR can also be some general constraint. That is, this shouldn't be there, or this can only go up to that extent. That is also a NFR. That is the constraint you will keep in your mind. So the emphasis always, whenever we give software or do software, make software, we always think about the functionality. Say we have 50 use cases, 50 requirements, we just start making it. But without these NFRs, non-functional requirement, proper usability, proper security, proper performance, proper maintainability, reliability, availability, if it is not there, then the software is not be usable or useful at all. So non-functional requirement is as important as functional requirement. So there are certain ways like the QFD, quality function deployment. Here, the customer who don't speak the requirement, those requirements can be converted into system requirement. That is, users think sometimes these things are obvious. So how to convert those things into actual requirements? So these non-functional requirements in the SRS, which I already showed you, in this SRS we presented. So there is a proper template. IEEE standard is also there. So we write it here. We mention it in the SRS. Non-functional requirements, as I said, we are using QFD to convert these the unspoken requirement into actual requirement. This we can do using QFD. But as in addition to QFD, as a help to QFD, we can also have a two-phase approach in order to identify the non-functional requirement. That is, what are the non-functional requirements? So how to do this? The first phase in this two-phase approach, we first establish the guidelines. These are the software engineering guidelines we'll use. What are the practices you are going to use? What will be the architecture style? What is the design pattern? Then we'll list the NFRs. That is, how much usability you want, what is this testability, do you want security or not, what is the maintainability, reliability, availability. This can be the NFRs. So there will be a list of the guidelines, there will be a list of NFR. Then we'll make a table. The table in the matrix form, here we'll have columns and rows. So the column labels we will give as NFRs, like the usability, testability, security, maintainability, like this. So the column labels, for example, you have the requirement. These are requirements only. So you can say R1, R2, R3. These are non-function requirements. So we'll put it on the column labels. Then the guidelines we have already established. This will put on the row labels, like this guideline 1, guideline 2, guideline 3. Okay. Now this is a matrix form. What you will do, because ultimately we have to find out what are the requirements. This is our goal. So this is a relationship matrix. Now here each guideline will be compared with other. That is, whether this guideline 1 and guideline 2 with respect to this requirement is complementary, whether these two are overlapping, conflicting or independent. For example, for the requirement number 2, say for testability, whether this guideline 2, guideline 3, how do they are related? So the relationship between the guidelines with respect to the NFR is known here, and we'll write it there. Okay, I'll tell you. G1, G2, for example, we have two guidelines. We already established the guidelines, and for these two guidelines for a particular requirement, this requirement, for these two guidelines, whether these guidelines, because we are comparing the guidelines, whether they are talking same thing, so they are overlapping. So if two guidelines are saying the same things for the same requirement, if they are saying one is north, one is south, we are saying conflicting. It may be a scenario where G1 and G2 guidelines are entirely different, so they are independent. So now comes the second phase. Here the team will prioritize each of these NFRs by creating a homogeneous set of non-functional requirements. Here you will use the set of decision rules for which guidelines to implement and which to reject. So here we are using this non-functional requirement. We can also decide what guidelines we are going to implement, because we have made, say, some homogeneous set, for example R1 till R3, and say Rn minus 1 and Rn. So for this which guideline we have to implement? For example, one guideline is applicable, one is not. This is the second phase. Traceability. Now traceability is all about going back, because whatever you have done same thing what is being asked for, and this we'll discuss in the later discussion. Till then, thank you so much. Take care of yourself.